Hi there. Welcome to Uncertainty is Possibility. And in the true spirit of what this podcast is called, I want to be very honest with you that I woke up this morning and just thought, okay, I'm going to start this today and got this out by the end of the day. I didn't even have a title for this podcast before this morning. And I feel like this really shows how when we let uncertainty guide us, sometimes the things we thought wouldn't be possible just comes through. And I thought maybe I'll just want to start by sharing why I really wanted to do this podcast, because I feel like that might also help you decide whether you want to stick around and whether this content is for you. I've been wanting to do something like that for over 2 years now, and all the while it didn't feel like the right time until this morning. But how I got this idea to do this podcast was really sparked by a lot of interesting conversations I was having with friends who had either stepped off the traditional path or were contemplating it, or really were just on this journey alongside me when I moved to Melbourne and started almost like a new life. And these conversations really opened my eyes to a new world, and I wanted more people to hear them. So maybe just some context about myself. So for a large part of my life, I was very much what one would call to be on a straight traditional path, like a Singaporean dream path. And honestly, I fit into it quite naturally, I feel. I grew up in a stable middle income family in Singapore. And when I was 19, I got a scholarship. My undergrad and my master's was sponsored. After I came back from my master's, which I did overseas, I came back, did my postgrad diploma in education, went to teach, and I was posted to HQ, headquarters at the Ministry of Education. So it was always a smooth sailing, straightforward path for me. And I wouldn't say it was bad. It was very predictable and comfortable to a large extent. And then my husband's work visa came through to move to Australia, and then we moved to Melbourne. Uh, when he got that offer, it was honestly quite difficult for me, and I grappled with it for a long time. The consideration was even at one point that he moved for 2 years, and then I just stayed in Singapore. Um, yeah, at that time. While it was difficult for me, my husband has always wanted to try living and working overseas. And I always find that people who moved once in life are much more open to moving again. I'm not sure if that is your observation as well. So for my husband, he migrated from China to Singapore when he was 7. So a move again to him, he has always shared, was almost natural and desired, right? But for me, my life in Singapore was very stable. I had a clear path and what many would consider comfortable and desirable path. So there was no reason to leave. But after a period of contemplation, something in me said, just go. You can always come back. It's not that once you leave Singapore, it's a done deal and you can't return. So I went. And 4 years on, I genuinely cannot recognize who I was before I left. It's not in a bad way, and I don't think fundamentally I've changed. But being away from an environment that is comfortable, that is predictable, that feels very safe, um, it has really brought about a shift in my views, my perspectives, the way I see the world, the way I see myself, the way I see myself in relationships, the way I see myself interact with my environment and the world. And I don't credit that just to the work that I've done on myself. I also credit it to the people I've met, conversations I've had, the teachers I've met along the way. I also credit it to the privilege and opportunity to live an environment that felt safe and stable. And I acknowledge that this privilege does not come to everyone. Also credit it to the privilege and self-trust that I had to leave my stable career and chart something new from scratch. This podcast is definitely not me saying, I did it, so can you. Honestly, I find that kind of narrative really annoying. So it's not the angle that I'm going for. But I'm starting this because of what I personally find useful, which is to live vicariously through other people. So not in the way where you think, oh, she did it, then I can too. It's more like um, when people share their stories, it could light up a spark of possibility within. So the narrative is more like, oh, hearing this person share this, maybe I could try, maybe I'll hate it, maybe I'll love it, but at least that spark is lit. And I really hope this is what this podcast is for you, like lighting that little spark of possibility, and for you to maybe start exploring, even if not tangibly, but just in your mind space, in your heart space, start to open up possibilities for yourself. Um, so how this podcast is gonna run, at least what I have in mind now, is sometimes I'll be here alone sharing from my own experiences and my own observations. Sometimes I will be in conversation with guests, like maybe teachers, friends, fellow travelers on this path. Um, and yeah, probably a mixture of both. Hmm. So you might be also wondering why I came up with this title, Uncertainty is Possibility. Actually, it really wasn't planned. I just thought of it today. But I feel like it has been in the background in my mind space and my heart space for some time. And when this title came up, what I related it to immediately was a moment in my psychotherapy training lecture where my teacher put up a slide. It was just a simple activity called Exploring Uncertainty. And I feel like he wasn't a very passionate lecturer, to be honest. So I don't think he was like all out to like, make a difference, but it has really made a difference for me and honestly shaped how I think of all of these. And maybe it would be interesting for me to, for us to do this little activity now together. And yeah, if you have some time and space now, I would like to invite you to join me as I speak into yeah, it's just a short like 3-minute activity. So let's go. And you can pause at any time to if you need more time to think. Okay? So right now, just think of 2 things about yourself. Okay? The first thing, let's call it A, something you feel truly certain about. So just bring that thought to your mind, something you feel truly certain about. Okay, first thing. Second thing, let's call this B, something you feel truly uncertain about. Something you feel truly uncertain about. And I just hold these 2 things about yourself and your life. Just sit with both. And then just check in with your body, your felt experience, your felt sense of each. Not just the thoughts, but what you actually feel in your body when A comes up, and then what you feel in your body when B comes up. And what are some similarities in what you observe, and what are some differences? For example, you feel really calm about A, and you feel really jittery about B, something like that, right? So just sit with it for a while. You can pause here if it helps. And then let's imagine it flipping. So what would happen? How would you feel if you now became uncertain of A? The thing that you felt so sure about, now you are uncertain about it. And what would happen, or how would you feel if you now became certain of B? The thing that was up in the air, super uncertain, now there is a set and clear answer or path to B. What is the felt experience of these reversals in your body? So just sit with it for a while, pause this if it helps. And now I'm going to share my experience doing this activity. The activity has ended, by the way. It's just a really short one, and really the rest of it is for us to contemplate what came up for us. So just my personal experience, I remember being quite struck by this because um, I'm someone who really liked certainty in the past, but this activity has made me notice that, hey, actually, my ideas or my feelings about certainty and uncertainty, it was not as fixed as I thought it was. So it was quite surprising because I thought I hated uncertainty and I really love certainty. Mm, but it wasn't really the case for me. And actually, what came up for me during this activity is the realization that certainty is the possibility of one path, and uncertainty is the possibility of many paths that haven't been closed off yet. And when I felt this in my body at that moment, something really shifted. And that's really what the title of this podcast means, that uncertainty is not the absence of something, it is the presence of possibilities with the plural form, right? So as someone who really needed certainty in the past, I'm not saying that wanting certainty is wrong. And for some people, that is genuinely the right path and a better path for them. And there's no judgment in that. But my personal experience is that after experiencing what uncertainty has opened up for me, I find it hard to going back to that thinking that there is only one path and one way. And something else that the activity made me notice was also that when we cling too tightly to certainty, it doesn't just limit us, it can also stress us out. Because the reality is that life will not always cooperate with us. So we want to stay on this path, but life will not always support us in that way. And when we are pushed off the tracks of what we thought we were on, and we didn't expect it or we don't embrace it, and that's when a lot of the emotional turmoil comes in, the inner conflict comes in. So sometimes the tighter we hold on to certainty, the harder we fall. How this connects with the work that I do, it's actually really, really connected to the work I do now as a psychotherapist and coach. If I put what I do on a day-to-day very, very simply, it's really just helping people live well. And living well means very different things to different people. So for example, some people, living well means having a big family, a simple life. For some, it's business class and travel. For others, it's impact, contributing to something beyond themselves. But if you're here and you connect with me as a person and the work that I do, I have a feeling that you are probably someone who defines living well as something bigger than yourself. And to do that, it is so important to be in a good space within ourselves so that we can fully show up for the relationships and the communities that we care about. And in my experience, living that way requires two things, like two key ingredients that I feel are genuinely hard to build. And I will share these two ingredients from my perspective. So the first is the presence to hold necessary discomfort. And that means to be present with what's happening inside you, no matter how uncomfortable it is, and to hold it with love and compassion instead of pushing through or bypassing it. And when I say presence to hold necessary discomfort, it's not the same as telling someone just sit with whatever's uncomfortable, it will pass, or to just tell someone, oh, go and meditate and you'll be fine, or go and do some self-care. I feel like often these narratives are very trivializing and I don't agree with it. It takes a lot of effort and time to cultivate the presence to be with discomfort. And it takes skills as well. I personally took years to cultivate this presence. And this presence is still not 100% always with me. Sometimes I still find it very discomforting to be with discomfort. So it is really not easy. Rather than saying that I have arrived, it's more like I am on this journey and I am holding people's hands and walking with them through a journey that I am also on, right? So, yeah, that is the first ingredient. The second ingredient is self-trust. And what this means is the ability to trust ourselves that when we make a choice that feels aligned, we will be okay. We will be okay even if we cannot see what's coming up next, or we can see what's coming up next and it's basically a huge mountain of challenges. But you are able to trust yourself that, okay, I am able to ride through it no matter what comes, or yeah, even if I don't know what's coming. Again, I am still building it. I feel like I am getting better at it. But it is not an endpoint. There wouldn't come a day where I say, oh, I 100% have self-trust. That doesn't happen. Yeah. So just to share, like, one of the things that helped me build both of these, apart from my personal therapy, not personal training, like being a client in therapy sessions, and also my training to become a psychotherapist. Apart from these two things that I feel like were huge in helping me build presence and self-trust, is also hearing how other people do it. Like my friends and acquaintances, sometimes even people on the internet that I don't know. I see them building something and I'm like, wow, very inspired. So it's not about copying them, but again, living vicariously through them to get some ideas to see and feel that it is possible. And then to find my own version of possibility through their stories. So this is also a large part of why this podcast exists, to for you to hear from others who have stepped into uncertainty and possibilities and then find your own version of it. And of course, your preference, and maybe feeling like uncertainty is not for you, and that is totally valid as well. So I just want to be clear that this podcast is not trying to convince you of anything, that one way of living is better than the other. I'm not here to say that uncertainty is great, possibilities are endless, go and do all these things. I'm not saying that. It is much more neutral than that. So what I hope is to present stories, people I've met along the way. You might resonate, you might not. You might decide that after listening, you know for certain, you have certainty that you don't want that kind of uncertainty in your life. And honestly, that to me would mean that this podcast worked, because then at least for you, there is no lingering what if. At the end of the day, I hope and I invite you to come with curiosity. Come like you are overhearing a conversation at a cafe and just put your nosy kaypoh hat on and let this podcast spark more questions than answers. Because questions are always the beginning of something, just like how uncertainty is the beginning of possibilities. I am really excited to start this journey and I'm so glad you're here. If anything comes up for you as you listen, you can drop me a DM on Instagram, you can leave a comment wherever you're listening, or just have a chat with your journal or your friends. This is the conversation, kind of conversation I could have for hours, and I would love for it to ripple out beyond just you and me. And that's all from me today. I'll be back with more. Stay tuned.